Hi everyone, I'm Gina from Gina K Designs and your host of Stamp TV. Today on Stamp TV, I'm going to show you an elegant Christmas card project that you can make using the new Sparkling Christmas Stamp TV kit. Let me show you the tools and products you need to make this card project. First, you're going to need some stamps, and the stamps that I am using are this elegant reindeer stamp, and I'm using the greeting that says Christmas Greetings. Then you're going to need some cardstock, and the cardstock I'm using is the Gina K Designs white, and I'm using both the layering weight and the heavy base weight for my card base, and the cherry red. You're going to need some embossing powder, and I'm going to use the Gina K Designs Fine Detail Gold powder. Along with that, I'm going to use an embossing magic pad and some VersaMark ink. You're also going to need something to add a little bit of sparkle. And for these tiny areas that I want to glitter, I'm going to be using the Sakura Stardust pen. You can also use the Wink of Stella, or if you have a quickie glue pen, you can use that with a little bit of our frozen loose glitter, and that will look beautiful too. I'm going to do a bit of embossing, dry embossing, and I'm going to use this Lifestyle Crafts embossing folder, and I believe this one is from the Lattice collection, but you can use any folder that you have. I thought snowflakes would be really pretty too. Then I'm using some of these square foam dots. I'm using some of the mono adhesive, and then I have my paper snips. Now I'm also going to be using dies for this, and I'll introduce the dies that I'm using as I get going with that. But first, I'm going to start by doing a little bit of embossing. I just kind of want to see where to lay out my first image, because I want to cut it out using this particular die. So that just gives me a good idea of where I need to stamp it. All right. So I'm going to begin by rubbing the surface of this white piece of cardstock with that embossing magic pad. Then I'm going to grab some of the VersaMark ink and ink up this stamp real well. And if it's the first time you're using the stamps from your new kit, just give them a little bit of extra ink, and sometimes stamp them once or twice before you actually work on your project. Okay. So, give the ink a chance to transfer to the paper completely. And then you can pull that off. Now I have a piece of scrap paper here, and I'm going to open up my gold embossing powder and sprinkle that over the surface of that pretty little deer. So you can see what that will look like. Just going to blow away the excess. Maybe put a little bit more on there. I think I was a little rough. Okay. And now I'm going to get my heat tool and emboss that image. I love our gold powder. It's so nice and bright and shiny. And you get all that detail from those antlers without it all mushing together, because it's a fine detail powder. See how pretty that is? See all that detail in there? And then this is going to get cut out with this die, so I still want to make sure it fits before I move on. Okay, that's going to look good. Now the next thing I want to do is take my piece of cardstock that's going to be part of my card front and do the same thing with the embossing magic pad. And then I want to ink up the Christmas greetings. I think my VersaMark pad might need some re-inking. It's getting a little dry. Okay, and I'm going to put that right down here at the bottom, and excuse my head if it gets in the way. It's going to be down there. Okay. And then the same thing again. I want to grab my gold embossing powder and cover up that greeting. can see that's going to be so pretty. And I'll emboss that. So there is my embossed greeting. You can see how pretty that is and shiny. Okay, so those two pieces can go off to the side for a second. Now we're going to do a little bit of die cutting. So I'm going to use the die cutting machine that is my favorite, and that is the one by Cherry Lynn Designs. Let me grab these. And this is the crossover machine. All right, so I'm going to start with the white plate, and then I'm going to use the Allison's ribbons dies. And what I'm going to do is cut out the bigger of the two plates using some cherry red cardstock. And you can see I'm placing the plate off to the one side because the sides of the plate will give you just a little bit more pressure when you're dealing with intricate dies. So now I'm going to put this on top, and then I'm going to grab an excess piece of paper. So I'm going to use the one that had the embossing powder on it, and I'm going to just put that right there on top and run that through the machine. Now I have my machine set on about 4, maybe closer to 5. And I'm going to go back and forth a couple of times just to make sure I get all of that detail. Okay. Well, you can see they're all falling right out. There we go. So the one that I'm going to use is this one here. And you can see the little pieces haven't all come out, so I'm going to just kind of run my thumbnail over it to get some of them out. You can see most of them will come out that way. It's almost like, remember the ribbed ribbon that you used to be able to buy and you'd run your scissors along the side and it would curl? So that's the same kind of concept. You can really get a lot of the pieces out if you do that. But if there's a few sticklers, you can use a paper piercing tool. I just have a couple last ones there. And there you can see how pretty that one is. Okay, I'm going to put that one aside, and then I'm going to cut a white one. Get rid of the excess here. Now I'm going to cut a white one using the smaller of the two plates. I'm going to cut that out with our layering white. And again, I'm going to do the same thing by putting a piece of excess cardstock, a little extra piece there, and I'm going to run that through the machine. And I'm going to go back and forth a couple times. Now I have this machine set pretty tight. You can loosen it up a little bit if it's too tight, but it really does cut well when it's set tight. Okay, so there, and the one that I want to use, I'm going to pick out using my craft pick. Just going to reach under there like that, and then pull that one out. And that is the one that I'm going to use for this project. And I'll work on the other ones later. I really like the fact that so many cut out at once because you can use them for so many different projects and they're all ready to go. All right, so now I'm going to cut out this deer. And I want to make sure that he's positioned well in this oval. And I'm using the Stackers Layers ovals for both, not for both, yes, for both. Now here we go. That's what I want to cut. Okay. So I want to cut the deer in the silver and then a plain oval with that purple one. Like that. And it's kind of nice to do them both at the same time. And there we have those two pieces. So we'll put those aside for a minute. And now I'm going to cut two out of cherry red. And I'm going to cut the biggest silver one. That's the Stacker's Layers die. And I'm using the inverted oval for this one. And I need two, so I'm going to cut them both out at the same time. Save a little bit of time. All right. So now I have my large cherry red oval, and that's going to layer onto this white one. Then I have my inverted oval, and that's going to layer onto that white one, and then my focal image will go in the center. So we'll do that in just a little bit. But before we do that, I am going to emboss. So now with the Cherry-Lin crossover machine, it's very easy. You don't need different plates. You just need to set the dial to a wider number. So I'm going to put that around 12 and see how that works. So it was at 4, now it's going up to 12. And then I'm going to place this folder so that my greeting is sticking out at the bottom. I don't want the greeting to be embossed. I just want it to be embossed part of the way down. Okay, so that looks pretty good. And then the clear plate on top. And we'll run this through. Wait a minute, I'm a little crooked here. Let me straighten that out. Okay. Felt like it did its job, so I think 12 was a good setting. Oh yeah, there we go. So you can see that is embossed there at the top, and then it just stops. Now it is time to assemble this card. So let me move my crossover machine out of the way, and we'll get all of the pieces that we need. And we need these little strips. Now I want to do something fancy with this one strip here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab that scrap piece of paper again. I'm going to lay this strip on here. Then I'm going to take my VersaMark pad and I'm going to ink up the strip with some VersaMark. Really get it nice and inked up. And then I'm going to flip that over, and I'm going to pour that gold embossing powder all over that strip, and I'm going to emboss it. And I don't have to do the whole entire strip because I'm going to be cutting some of it off anyway, so I have a little piece to hang on to. And now, as you can see, I have a beautiful gold embossed border that perfectly matches the gold embossing in the other pieces. So now we're going to assemble this card. Alright, I'm going to start by adding a little bit of the mono adhesive to the back of the gold embossed Allison's ribbons border. You just want to be careful that you don't tear it. It's kind of delicate, but once you get it locked in place, it should be okay. So you can start it anywhere. And then just lay it down neatly. Like that. Isn't that pretty? You get all that shine. And then this whole border is going to go across the line between the dry embossed area and the greeting. Okay. And it really doesn't matter which way you place it. I'll just put it on right like this. Get rid of those little shreds. And then it looks here like it's missing a little bit of tape, so I'll just add a little bit of tape to that and tack that down. Okay, so now I'm using my scissors to just cut right along the sides of each of the borders. So we have a perfect fit, like that. And now that panel is going to go on top of this cherry red panel. And whenever I emboss, I use a lot of extra tape because embossing sometimes warps the paper a bit, and by taping it down to a nice solid base weight piece, that eliminates all of that warping. And it looks nice and straight. There we go. And then this whole panel is going to go onto my white base weight, the heavy base weight white card base. And get that centered. Okay. So there I have the card base ready to go. Now we need our focal image, so I'm going to layer up these two first. And again, a little extra tape on that one since it is the layering weight and it's been embossed. I don't want any ends sticking up. Okay, that whole piece goes onto the white one, and that's what gives you that little beaded look around the perimeter there. Love that. And then this whole panel on top of the largest cherry red oval. And now this is going to be applied with some of these pop dots. Get rid of these little shred parts on the back. It's a shame we can't think of something fun to do with all of those. We'd have piles of them. Okay. And that whole panel is going to go right here, like this. And then to add a little bit of glitter, I'm going to take that Stardust pen and I'm going to color in the scarf just with that clear glitter. I'm also going to color in his little boots and fur cuffs. And it's just enough to add a little bit of sparkly opalescent shimmer. And that's very hard to see on the camera there, but you might be able to see a little of it there when I turn it like that. So there is my finished card project. I hope you've enjoyed today's Stamp TV video. Stay tuned to Stamp TV for more projects featuring the Sparkling Christmas Stamp TV kit. And thanks so much for watching.